Welcome to Manufacturing Talk Radio, your everything manufacturing podcast, with host and veteran manufacturing industry expert Lewis Weiss and co-host Amy Niklas. Make sure to check out our catalog of 800 previous shows on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. Now, let's get into the episode.
Good day, everyone. This is Lou Weiss with Manufacturing Talk Radio again. We're going to have an interesting conversation with Jim Tompkins of Tompkins Ventures. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Lou. Good to be here.
Great. Tim, give us a little background story of who you are, and what Ventures is all about.
Well, I grew up in Chicago, went to Purdue. I have a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD in industrial engineering from Purdue. And after Purdue, I went in the Army for 3 years, came out of the Army, and came down here to Raleigh, North Carolina, and was a professor at NC State. My wife and I were behind all of our friends. All our friends got their bachelor's degree and went out and made money. And we went out and got degrees and Army done. And so we were trying to catch up quickly. So I taught a seminar. Of all things, I taught a seminar in 1975 on planning and managing warehouse operations. That seminar exploded. Lou, it was the best warehousing seminar in the world. The reason I say that with such confidence, it was the only warehousing seminar in the world. No one else would have thought to teach that. And what I did is I applied industrial engineering to warehousing. And that course resulted in another course, another course, another course. Some people attended and said, "Could you do consulting on that?" And so I started a little consulting company. That little consulting company, 4 years later, my wife pointed out to me that my part-time income was 6 times larger than my full-time income. So I left the university and made my life's work consulting with a company that we called Tompkins Solutions. That company did well. We grew, we prospered. By 2000, we decided to go global. We sold a portion of the company to private equity. And we opened a business in Australia and China and Europe and Africa and in North America and South America. And business was going very well. The first private equity sold their 35% to Blackstone. Things went very well. We grew further and we left kind of doing warehousing and transportation work and went into full supply chain work. That firm then got sold to a Chinese private equity firm. That all ended with COVID in 2020. And the official word was I retired. I wasn't very good at that, only stayed retired for 3 weeks. And I started Tompkins Ventures, where Tompkins Ventures is not a consulting firm, but it is a firm that provides matchmaking. One client has a problem, another partner has a solution, and we put them together and we solve problems. We do that in logistics. We do it in entrepreneurial growth. We do it in technology. We do it in procurement, and we do it in organizational development. So that's the firm that I run today is Tompkins Ventures, as well as I'm now back as chairman of my original firm, Tompkins Solutions again.
So the conclusion that I draw from that long, multi-year journey is always listen to your wife.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so typically, what is Tompkins Ventures typically doing for manufacturing? Because this is what we're all about. We're about manufacturing and solutions to their issues and problems.
Probably the largest body of work we do is in the technology area. Today, a lot is in the artificial intelligence area where they want to include artificial intelligence in their forecasting and their scheduling and their inventory planning. They want to create autonomous operations. We also do a lot of work in automation in manufacturing, as well as we handle their supply chains. We do the logistics portion, we do the procurement portions. So a lot of our work is done with manufacturers.
Do you do these services as an outside remote vendor, or do you actually come into the manufacturing sector and take a visible presence in one's business?
Kind of a combination. And so what we do at Tompkins Ventures is we analyze the problem and determine a path forward. We then select a partner who goes in and does the work, but we don't charge consulting fees. There's no consulting fees. We come in, we do the work, we make a recommendation, and the client then has the choice of saying yes or no. If they say no, no harm, no foul. They keep the report and we go away. If they say yes, then they'll buy the service. And so it might be buying a new AI agent that's going to help them do scheduling. It might be buying new transportation. It might be building a new plant. It might be relocating a plant. It may be going to a third-party logistics provider. It may be consolidating some of their procurement spend. So those are the types of things we do through our partners. Our partners, we have 263 business partners, and then we
Yeah.
have commercial partners over 200. We have capital partners over 400,000. And then we have some consulting partners that handle projects that can't be solved without doing some consulting. But we're 90% of the time not doing consulting. We're doing free advice that then leads to an implemented solution where clients get results.
So how does Tompkins Ventures make money? Not that not that I'm worried about.
Hey, you and my wife, she must have called you. And so what happens is when let's say we bring a transportation provider, and a guy says to me, Jim, our transportation spend is too high. We'll analyze what they're doing, and we will identify a, a carrier or a company that has a transportation capacity to come in and look at the study. They'll come in, they'll do the study, they'll make recommendations. If they say yes, they then hire the transportation company to do that. They pay for the transportation. And in that transportation fee is a small success fee that comes back to us for us recommending it. So we get a success fee based upon how well our partners provide. It's an interesting model because although we have very low overhead, we're asset light, but what we have is unlimited capacity. If someone has a problem that we can't solve, we go find someone who can solve it and provide that capability so the client gets a free look at how they can make things happen and save money without spending money. And then if they decide to do it, they move forward. We plan on about 80% of the time moving forward, and it works out about right. So we are doing well.
One of the things that I've learned along the way of my 60 years in manufacturing is that manufacturers, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, manufacturers really know how to make stuff. They
Yep.
know how to make it, they know how to sell it, they know how to promote it. They don't necessarily know all the things that you just mentioned because they've been busy running a business. So, one of the things that I found is that having outside resources, which wasn't always the way business ran. Today, I feel you have to rely on outside resources to help build your company, grow your company, monetize your company, make your company efficient, and so on and so forth, and introduce the company. And this is the most important part: is bringing new technology that was not available or even discovered 10, 15, 20 years ago when they first started their business, or in my case, even longer than 30, 40 years. So I think it's imperative that companies realize the value in a service such as the one that you're providing.
Well, Lou, I could not agree more. We find many manufacturing firms that have a core competency that is absolutely world class. And so, what we want to help them do is focus on what they really, really do well. But oftentimes, that means their procurement isn't so good. Their transportation is terrible. They don't have the right technology. You said 10 or 15 years ago. We're talking now about technology that didn't exist 10 or 15 months ago when we're talking about robotics and humanoids and AI. So there's so much potential there. So, absolutely, the more time we can help manufacturers focus on what they're really, really good at, the more successful they're going to be. And then we can handle the things that are around that core. And maybe they shouldn't be in the warehousing business. Maybe they should use a 3PL. Maybe they shouldn't do their own tooling. Maybe they should outsource that. And so let's define what's core, really focus on that, and then let the other stuff get taken care of with people that is their core.
Being that you brought that particular point up, have you experienced a client where you literally turned their whole business upside down and got rid of certain services that they provided and farmed it all out? Is that something that you have done?
Yes. Yeah, I would say 3 years ago, we had not done that, but now we do have virtual companies. And what's enabled that is, the full acceptance of e-commerce and how companies now it's 2 guys and 2 women in a garage, and they're doing, $25 million a year, but they outsource everything other than the sales relationship and the fulfillment of orders. So it's very interesting. Virtual companies do exist and are being successful.
But you brought up an interesting point. My previous life, I had a raw material metals company that supplied metals to manufacturers. And in 1978 or 80, I don't recall, we brought on ISO certification to our company, which I'm sure you're quite familiar with that.
Sure.
ISO meaning the International Standards Organization, which I'm sure most of the manufacturers are aware of today. We were one of the first metal companies that implemented that within our company, and it proved to be invaluable and saved us a lot of money. That aside, it's a little bit more difficult when you have outside providers where you don't have the control of the quality standards on vendor A, vendor B, vendor C. Um, and there was a way that I did it in my prior life, but how is that become an issue with regards to the services you're providing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what we find is that oftentimes when we are selecting the providers, we'll do it with a impersonal, not personal RFP process, and then we'll go through an evaluation process and go with the low bid. And the low bid is not necessarily the low bid. And so what we need to do is work on building the teamwork, the cohesion, the communication that works together. I actually wrote a book on that subject. This is a book called Logistics and Manufacturing Outsourcing, and I'm the primary author of that book. And so, absolutely, it's an art to create a virtual business, and you really need to make that a core competency. You need to make a core competency your ability to retain others to outsource to. And if you don't have that as a core competency, you shouldn't be doing it.
Shouldn't be doing remote.
Right. If you don't have a core competency in outsourcing, you shouldn't be going outsourcing.
So ISO quality standards really runs through the whole process of uh, remote business functions.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, so going back to the beginning, uh, FUCA, VUCA. Tell us about that.
So VUCA was invented by the Corps of Engineers back when Reagan was talking about the Berlin Wall falling. And Reagan wanted to know what are the implications of this. And they came up with the word VUCA: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. The word VUCA was used a lot back then in the 1980s, but then it kind of went away. But when we started getting into 2000 and 2002, 2003, there was a tremendous amount of disruption and uncertainty. And so I was looking for a word that I wanted to put on this, and I went back and I found VUCA. And so VUCA is where we live today. And if we're talking about reshoring, as you and I did in the pre show, VUCA is alive and prominent in everything we do. Volatility. Today, we have volatility in tariffs, in freight rates, in energy costs, and any thought process of us reaching steady state and traveling along a normal path where business as usual is going to be wonderful is not true. Volatility is out there and it's really having its way with us. Uncertainty. My goodness sakes alive. Is it Iran? Is it Ukraine? Is it the Chinese? Is it the Russians? Is it Venezuela? Is it Cuba? There's huge, huge, huge uncertainty. If we look at how a company is going to operate, there's only really three things that are uncertain: the supply, the demand, and the lead times. Unfortunately, that's everything. Everything is what are the supply from my providers, what is the demand from my customers, and what is the lead time. And so with the uncertainty there, what we're going to have is volatile times because of the uncertainty. Complexity is unbelievable today. We have complexity with optionality. We do not want to single source anything. We don't want to single country anything, and so we need to have optionality. And optionality needs to be done at the same time that you're doing resilience and you're still trying to keep the cost low. What people say as well, optionality is going to increase cost. Yes, it will. Some people say, well, resilience is going to increase the cost. Yes, it will. Well, we can't increase cost. Well, that's why this is a very complex situation. And then the A is ambiguity. And that's actually the hardest part because today there is no normal. People keep saying to me, Jim, when's it going to get back to normal? The answer, never. Disruption is the new normal, and so we need to deal with it. So, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity makes it very, very, very difficult to run a global supply chain and to meet our manufacturing client customers' requirements. And so, what we're looking at as a hedge to allow us to do better with VUCA is to do reshoring. Because if we're going less distance, we're making it closer, we're putting demand closer to supply, what we're going to find is our forecast errors are going to be going down and we're going to have less volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And so resourcing is a basic risk mitigation strategy that's going to help manufacturers do a better job of managing VUCA and providing resilience optionality while not increasing cost.
We touched on this a little bit ago about reshoring. We've had Harry Moser, who is the master of reshoring, in my opinion, and everybody loves Harry. I'm sure you know Harry. And tell me how all this works with your services in regards to reshoring, bringing back your supply chain to reshoring, nearshoring, and so on.
Well, I think the key is to let me use an analogy. Let's say you're sitting on the beach and I'm on my surfboard out in the water. And so I'm not going to be looking at you because you're on the shore. You're where I'm going. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be looking over at my shoulder and I say, Lou, see that, not the second wave, but see the third wave? That third wave is coming and it's going to break right here. And what I need to do is I need to harness the power of that wave. And so I know it's a third wave. So I have the intelligence to look and understand where the disruption is going to be coming. And I know it's coming. And so when it starts to approach, I start paddling. I get in front of the wave.
Mm.
Okay. And when I get in front of the wave, the power of the wave, I mean, even my hair, which there's not much of, you would be like a hairball. But I mean, even my little hairs it will blow because I'm traveling so fast. But I'm now on the wave, but I can't just hang there straight. What I have to do is the wave has some twists and turns and some side currents. And so I have to have agility to play up that wave, to come back down the wave, to play up the wave, to get underneath the curl, and to really, really ride that wave all the way to the shore. And when I get to the shore, I'm then going to have a big smile on my face because I had a great ride and I didn't wipe out. That's what reshoring is about. We need to have the visibility to see what's coming, to have an understanding of what's taking place, to understand that sole sourcing everything from China is no longer viable. You can't do that because the supply could be irregular, and now you're going to be disappointing your customers. And so we got to have once we get once we understand what the power of that next wave is, we got to have the agility to move our business around and they have the ability to vary inventory, have the availability to change lead times, to change transportation, to alter the way my supply chain works so that I have the ability to bring that baby home and actually get on shore and now be able to optimize my adaptability. Okay, and so what we have been doing for years and years and years leading up to 2020 was we were optimizing the efficiency. So I'm an industrial engineer. I love to optimize efficiency. But guess what? Efficiency, which minimizes costs, no longer works because it's fragile, it's brittle, it breaks. And so, what we need to do is we need to have the adaptability. We want to, therefore, invest in things like digital twins. We want to invest in scenario planning. We want to invest in AI so that we have the ability to move with the wave and therefore to be able to drive that home, to get in front of the VUCA, to stay in front of the waves. If you just sit there in the water and you don't get in front of a wave, guess what? That wave's going to take you out and you're going to wind up eating sand. And so, what we need to do is we need to understand where we are and where we're trying to get, and then do it with adaptability and resilience while still trying to minimize cost.
Great analogy, great insight. And you sort of proved out what I said some 10 minutes ago, and that is that manufacturers know how to make things, but they don't know the things that you know. And it's and especially on a cost basis, your services must be incredibly on demand.
Absolutely. Yep.
Excellent. What other points would you like to talk about, Tim?
Well, I think one of the challenges we have is really grasping resilience. You know, if you look at us in 2019, we were doing everything just in time. Inventory was evil. And so we wanted to minimize the cost of that inventory. But what we found is had a brittle environment. We were fragile and one missed shipment and all of a sudden we couldn't ship. And so now what we see is resilience is not an option. Resilience is a mandate. The definition from a mechanical engineering point of view of resilience is your ability to bounce. And so, what is your ability to bounce? What is your ability to deal with VUCA? And so, what we see is that resilience it has a cost associated with it. And so the CFO says, I don't want resilience. Well, guess what? Fragility also has a cost to it. And so what we need to do is balance those costs. And so what we did is we went from just in time, COVID hit, we couldn't get anything that we wanted. So what we did is we went crazy with inventory and we went back to just in case. And just in case was evil because now we had all our money tied up in inventory that wasn't turning and therefore we lost profitability. And so the thinking was, well, we can't do just in time because we've got this VUCA thing killing us. And so what we need to do is we need to do just in case, but we can't afford that. So what it really becomes into, we have to have it just in region. And that brings us back to reshoring. And so we need to get the product available in the region when we need it. And so reshoring is a portion of the equation, but it's only a portion. In addition to that, we need to be able to add the technology components. We need to understand that we have greater ability to reshore things when we're automating it and when we have artificial intelligence. The more AI we have and the more automation we have, the easier it is to reshore. And so when someone says, well, what's more important, reshoring, automation, and AI? I say yes. I mean, it's one. It's what's most important, the cherry filling or the crust? Well, we got to have both to have a good cherry pie, and so it works like that. So I think that's really important. Um, how do companies decide what to reshore? I think there's 4 points there that you need to think on. The first one is value density. Now, what's value density? Well, value has to do with the value of the product, and density has to do with the size and the weight. And so, what's the ultimate value density product? Value density product would be jewelry. It's got a lot of dollars, but it's very small. Transportation doesn't really matter, and so that would be something you can do globally. Microcomputers, chips, microprocessors, medical devices, pharma. That stuff's all stuff that's got a high value density, as opposed to inexpensive things that are bulky. Inexpensive things that are bulky, you probably want to either reshore or nearshore, either bring that back to America or do it in Mexico. Second point is demand volatility. The greater the demand volatility, the more I want to reshore because I don't know what to make and don't have enough time to make it with the lead time.
Right.
The third issue is IP sensitivity. Is our intellectual property at risk? If it is, if we have substantial IP, I want to make it in the United States. And then the fourth thing is the automation potential. The higher the automation potential, the lower the labor, and therefore the better we can do it in the U.S. because the United States is expensive. So I think if we think about those 4 things, we can think about what to reshore. We've talked about how to reshore, and then what we have is an opportunity to really make sure we have the ability to address VUCA with resilience, and that's kind of the story.
Makes a lot of sense. In our final moments, I'd like to introduce, and we don't talk politics, and our audience knows that I never talk politics. Not that I don't want to, but it's just smarter not to. I'd like to bring up the new issue, and that is about tariff refunds based on the Supreme Court ruling of these last few days. I see it personally as a major foobar that it's not going to be quick and easy. Yet some of the talking heads over the last several days have been talking about how easy it's going to be. What's your thoughts on that, Tim?
Well, both positions have some validity. The fact of the matter is, all those payments are made electronically, and there is a database that has who paid what amount of money, and you could push the button and get that money refunded. That theoretically could be done. Now, is that going to get done correctly that way? No, because it's not necessarily who paid the tariff is the one that should be refunded. Because let's say you sold me something and I paid $100 tariff on it. Should I then be refunded that $100? Well, no, because I went to you and said, "Hey, Lou, we're working together on this. I tell you what, I got a hit with $100 tariff. Why don't you take 50 and I take 50, and you take 50 off your price, and I'll take the other 50, and so we work together so we maintain our position in this market." And so we do that. Well, but now I'm going to get the refund, but you paid half of it. Or what about the firm that used to sell that item for $100 to the United States, but now all of a sudden, since there's a tariff on it, they decide to sell it for $50 to the United States and get our profit after it hits the shore by creating a phony company in the U.S. and have that take place. That's rampant out there. And
Right.
so what we have is the concept of easy refunds is absolutely malarkey. There's no rationale for that at all. In addition to that, if we want to just talk about the Republicans and Democrats without getting political, guess which one of them wants to give up $180 billion? Neither. They neither do. Both of them, the Democrats and the Republicans, and there's probably some independents in there too, if we want to get totally right. And they don't want to give up the 180 billion. What they want to do is they want to keep it because they have things they want to spend that money on. And so the political machine is not in favor of it. The thought process of pushing a button is total baloney. It's not relevant. And so what we have is we actually have a failure on the part of the Supreme Court. Now, if you look at how the Supreme Court is structured, when it was created back with our founding fathers, guess what percent of the founding fathers were lawyers? 45%. 55% were farmers and newspaper people and retail owners and production people. They 55% was the majority. Today, what percent of the Supreme Court are business people? Zero. Which part of my manufacturing people? Zero. What part of supply chain people? Zero. We've got 9 lawyers sitting there. And so what the lawyers did is what they were supposed to do is supposed to make a legal decision, and they made a legal decision, which it was obvious from day one, EPA was not the right act to use to put in place the tariffs, but President Trump decided to use that act because that gave him the best negotiating power. And so he was trying to help the country, and so he tried to do what was right. Unfortunately, it turned out that that's not legal, and so the court possibly said it's not legal. But what they did is they said it's not legal. Okay, don't tell me what's legal or illegal. Help me solve this problem. The Supreme Court had nothing to say. So they
Right.
left us all hanging. And so now what we have is more VUCA because we don't know if there is going to be a refund or where it's going to go. People say, well, we fund it to Americans. Well, okay, how do you do that? Is your deduction from your income tax? Well, what if you don't pay income tax? Then you don't get, I mean, so it's a real screw up. Bottom line here, the thing that we can learn from this is the Supreme Court are brilliant men and women. They're excellent lawyers, and they should continue to help us decide what the founding fathers wanted us to do. But we need another court that's at least a fourth manufacturing people, a fourth supply chain people, and then maybe some lawyers if we have to, but maybe half manufacturing, half supply chain, I would like better. And let them guys look at it because what they're going to do is give us solutions to the problem and not just some legal ruling.
Tim, let us know when you are running for office. And
I'm not political. I'm not political.
I know, but you have some great insight as you have throughout this half-hour discussion. I thank you for your input. I think that our audience will find value. Would you give us your email address and so that our audience, if they want to get in touch with you, they can do that?
Yes, it's the letter J as in Jim, the name Tompkins, Tompkins, at Tompkins Ventures. That's TompkinsVentures.com.
Thank you very much, and perhaps we'll have you on the show later in our season, and we'll see how things are progressing with the tariff refunds. That would actually be a great show.
I would enjoy it, and yeah, it would be a great discovery how we're going to handle that because it's a mess today.
It sure is, and not getting better.
No.
Thanks again for joining us, and make sure that if you like the show, hit the like button and subscribe button and any other positive buttons that you have on your screen. And thanks for showing up. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks again for joining us on another episode of Manufacturing Talk Radio with hosts Lewis Weiss and Amy Niklas. Before you head out, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. For more information about the show and the manufacturing industry, head over to mfgtalkradio.com. That's mfgtalkradio.com.
Resonate.